Good afternoon and welcome to Legacy After the Locker Room. I'm your host, Kayla Bradham, here today with legendary coach. And when I say legendary, I mean over 40 years in football, Coach Ray Sherman. Good afternoon, Coach.
How you doing, Kayla?
I'm doing great, and I'm so grateful that you're taking time out of your weekend to be here with us to inspire and create hope and possibility. Ray, I want to just start by asking you, and again, when I say legendary, I do mean legendary. You coached for a lot of NFL teams. What did football look like for you as a little boy? How did you grow to love the sport?
Well, I had two older brothers, Ernest and Earl, who played it, and so I would always go to the park with them, and I would always play against the older guys and guys in the neighborhood. And so then, after watching them, and when they went on in high school, and then I started playing, and I fell in love with it, and I just continued to do it. But I felt that the sport that I was really pretty good at was baseball, because I really love baseball. But then after playing football, I realized this is what I wanted to do.
So, did you end up with a scholarship to college?
Yes, I ended up the scholarship. Initially, ended up going to the University of California at Berkeley, and what happened was we had a situation that we had some went on probation, and I decided that I was going to transfer, and I ended up going to Fresno State. So I
Okay.
played for Daryl Rogers and Jim Colbert at Fresno State.
Okay, and when did you make the decision that you wanted to become a coach instead of a player?
Well, after after college, I had signed with Green Bay as a free agent, and I had some great experiences there with some great guys, and Willie Buchanan and John Brockington, and with a lot of MacArthur Lane. MacArthur was from the Bay Area, so I had a chance to spend time with him and work out with him, and because I played defensive back. And one of the things he told me after I was in camp, he said, "You keep working, you got a chance because you go on after you're going against the best." And Willie Buchanan even told me that too. He said, "If you want to make it, you got to go against the best players." So anyway, and we had a scrimmage, and I have never had a concussion before, and I got a concussion, and I really didn't remember. I was woozy, and then when I got to the sideline, that's the only thing I remember. And when I came to, I was on the sideline. I said, "Heck, I should be in there." And they grabbed me and said, "No, you're not supposed to be in there." So afterwards, Dr. Dominic, examined me and asked me questions. And I said, he asked me, did I remember anything? I said, I really don't. I said, the only thing I remember is saying, what am I doing here? And so they knew that I was kind of out of it. So, but the reason why I got into college coaching is my head coach, Daryl Rogers, and Jim Colbert. Those were the guys who were instrumental in me getting into coaching, because they felt that I would do a great job, because I was a junkie. I would study film. I would just always study film, and I would ask questions of them. And I'll never forget, they said, you would be a good coach one day. So I started out and I started working with them. I worked with them at San Jose State. And then Daryl Rogers ended up getting the job at Michigan State as a head football coach. So I ended up going there with him, and I ended up being the tight end coach there. And I had some really good young guys. I had Mike Cobb, who ended up being a first-round pick with the Cincinnati Bengals, and I had Mark Bramer, who was a tight end who played for Buffalo for about 5 or 6 years. So I had a good veteran guy, but I had a young buck who was really talented and a really good football player. So then I got into coaching, and then the rest is history. I started, and what I did is I coached at a lot of different places, and the reason for that is I wanted to gain as much knowledge as possible, work with a lot of different systems, be around a lot of, and I was around a lot of great head coaches, which was a lot of fun for me. In some situations, I realized that I would do it that way. If I got the opportunity. In other situations, that I would do it a different way. So that really helped me formulate, to becoming the coach that I became, because I knew what that I wanted to do, and I knew what I didn't want to do. And so I
Yep.
did that
Yep.
in college and also did that, being in NFL too. I was around some great people. And when I first came into the league, and Houston Oilers was my first professional job. And Jerry Glanville was the head coach. And he was a lot of fun. And I know he did some crazy things with the tickets with Elvis and all those different things, but he was a fun guy to coach for, a fun guy to be with. And he taught me something, because I'll never forget, this sticks out in my mind, and this is what I'm going to put in my book. But we had a situation where we were playing the Kansas City Chiefs, and we had lost Warren Moon the week before to Indianapolis. He cracked his collarbone, and then when we were playing in the game against Kansas City, Cody Carlson, our backup quarterback, dislocated his finger. So we had to go with our third stringer, Brent Pease. And, it was one of those games. It was nip and tuck. We ended up winning the game for 7-6. Mike Rozier rushed for 250 some odd yards, but we only threw for 24 yards, and we won the game 7-6. So I'm saying, I'm new, young. Okay, we're going in the locker room, and I said, Coach Glanville is going to be nuts. He's going to go crazy. And he's in there laughing and joking. He said, he just kind of had a way of saying, hey, well, that was a hell of a game, wasn't it, boy? One of the guys, and I just kind of wow, he wasn't even upset. You think of some personalities with head coaches, you only score 7 points and you win the game, but you score 7-6, they are just livid. But he had a way of just making you relax, making you feel good. And he also was one of those guys that would always put the pressure on himself. He didn't want the coaches to put all that pressure on himself. But the thing is, if your position, made a mistake or something happened in the ball game, we'd be in the meeting, he'll say, can you fix it? Do you have a drill for it? In a joking manner, but a relaxing manner. So that's one of the things that I learned, my first year being in the NFL, just how he was. And I kind of picked up some of those things just being around him.
That's fabulous. And you mentioned you have a book or working on a book, and I want to talk to you about that a little bit later on. Before we do, Ray, you've coached some of the greatest NFL players in modern history. My question for you is, what advice do you have for football players in relationship to their coaches, whether it's Pop Warner or high school, college, pros? What's your advice in dealing with your coach?
Well, different coaches have different avenues that they take in getting into the league, and it's very difficult now. But I went the route of college and then to the NFL. Some coaches go to high school, then to college, and then go to the NFL. And then you got a lot of players now in this time that after playing, they'll go into coaching, which is understandable. So I would tell a young man to prepare yourself, meet as many people as possible. If you're playing an opponent, you go and visit with that opponent, introduce yourself, read up on the guys that you're going to coach against. One of the things that happened for me when I ended up at the University of Georgia is Ray Goff was coaching at the University of Georgia. At the time, I was at Wake Forest. He was at South Carolina. Then he went to Georgia. I was at Wake Forest, and then I was at Purdue. And we would always, recruit against each other. And we would be on some of the same players. And we would share information. Now, I know some players I was able to get. He was able to get guys I couldn't get at Georgia. And so at Purdue, I ended up getting a few players because Atlanta was one of my areas, parts of Georgia. And so the thing he said to me, he says, you need to be at Georgia. And so I said, okay. I said, that would be nice, And so a couple of years went by, and then Vince Dooley, they called me and said, after I think it was after the 85 season, they called, and Vince Dooley said, hey, I want you to come down. I want you to interview at Georgia. And so I took the interview, and make a long story short, I ended up getting the job. But that place, being around him, was one of for my career, that was one of the greatest things for me as a young coach, to be with a guy like Vince Dooley, who was legendary, who was an honest man, a fair man, and I loved it. I loved coaching there with a lot of great players, with great people. Living there in Athens, Georgia was awesome for me.
Ray, I'm going to ask you to just, over such a lengthy career, you've been to a lot of cities and coached for a lot of teams. Take our listeners, if you will, kind of chronologically through your career.
From the beginning, or you want me to start in college?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead, college.
College, all right. I coached at the University of California at Berkeley. I coached at Michigan State. I coached at Wake Forest, Purdue University, and then the University of Georgia. From there, from Georgia, I ended up going to the Houston Oilers, and that was back in 1988. Some people weren't even born then. Then from the Houston Oilers, I went from Houston Oilers to the Atlanta Falcons. And Jerry Glanville was the head coach at Houston, and then he became the head coach at Atlanta Falcons, so I ended up going with him to Atlanta. From Atlanta, I went back home to California. I went with the San Francisco 49ers and was there for a while. And then from the 49ers, I went to the New York Jets, and I went there, as a coordinator. And from the New York Jets, I went to the Minnesota Vikings, and I was a quarterback coach there. And from the Vikings, I went to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And from the Pittsburgh Steelers, I went as a quarterback coach and coordinator at Pittsburgh. And then I went back to Minnesota. I went to Green Bay. I was in Green Bay for a while, for 4 years. And then I coached at Pittsburgh. It was in 98. That was my year there with them. And then from Green Bay, then I went to the Tennessee Titans. I went there as a receiver coach with Jeff Fisher. And from Tennessee, I went to the Dallas Cowboys with Wade Phillips, and as a receiver coach 4 years. And from Dallas, I ended up going to the Rams. And from the Rams, I went back to Pittsburgh. And then I'm back in Florida.
So I love it, and I love that story. And one of the things that sticks out to me is, first of all, go Pack Go. I remember you being here, and I loved you as a coach. But in your tenure, never a head coach in the NFL?
No, I had, I interviewed, which I knew it was a situation I wasn't going to get the job because, this Rooney Rule that they had out there, you had to interview a minority coach for a position. But I was at the Dallas Cowboys, and I knew that I wasn't going to get the job, but Jerry Jones called me and asked me to interview for the job. And, knowing deep down inside, I knew who the heir apparent was going to be. So I just felt that it was just, going to go through the motions. So I called my agent about it, and I told him initially, I said, I don't want to do it because I know I'm not getting a job. And he said, no, you go ahead and do it anyway. So I said, okay, I'll go ahead and do it. And at first I thought I was probably being there 45 minutes and, over with. But I was in there for about almost 4 hours, and I had my book that I presented to him on how I would do things, how I would run things. And I tell people this, and Jerry said to me, he said, you know a lot. And I kind of laughed. I said, and I looked at him, I said, Jerry, I've been doing this a long time. I better know what I'm doing. And so, that's what happened there. And I interviewed for some college jobs, but because of certain things that transpired and took place, it never happened. Even though that people wanted me there, it was a situation that I put in my book that some things happened that it didn't work out. And so I was okay with that. And at first, I was kind of bitter about some things and bitter about because I know that I had the experience. I know I had the credentials. I know I had all those things. But there's times when people that don't want you and it's out of your control. The only thing you can do is present yourself the best that you can. And if it works out, and I always said, if God wanted me to be a head coach somewhere, it would happen. So that's why I don't dwell on it. I don't worry about it. But what I do is I try to give advice to young coaches. I try to tell them things to prepare for, to look out for, things that'll help them. And hopefully, that those guys will have opportunities. And so I'm okay with that.
I like your attitude. That's a respectable attitude, because I think it would be very easy to feel bitter. Coach, I think we have young listeners who are so entrenched in 2021 that they might not even realize why we needed the Rooney Rule or what the Rooney Rule even is. I know I asked my own kids in high school, and they're like, did we need that? Ray, can you just explain to our younger audience what the Rooney is and why it was so important?
Well, the Rooney Rule was put in place by Bill Walsh, who was with the San Francisco 49ers, and also he was at Stanford, and Mr. Rooney, who was the owner of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And they came together, and Bill did a lot of legwork because he did a lot of it on the college ranks and working with colleges and putting things together and to give guys opportunities. He had clinics that he had to help coaches and bring coaches in. And I felt when we lost Bill and we lost Mr. Rooney, I felt that who's going to take over, who's going to implement, who's going to push this, because you can see the groundwork was being made and laid with Bill and Mr. Rooney. And then when we lost them, right now I feel that it's been made a mockery, because I feel that there's been some excellent coaches, minority coaches, and there's some tremendous white coaches that I've coached with that should have opportunities. So it's not just for black coaches, but there's some good white coaches that don't get opportunities. And the thing that I saw, especially for the black coaches, that you can be interviewing at these different places and they just kind of parade you around, but knowing in their minds who they want to hire. And it's really to me, I think it's a joke right now. I really don't think that it's sincere. I really don't think that they really want to give guys an opportunity. And I think, one of the things I feel that the media plays an important part, because one of the things that I went through, even when I interviewed, they, sometimes you get promoted, you get pushed. But then sometimes what they will do, they don't say anything, especially when it's a minority candidate. And then all of a sudden you have a white candidate that pops up, and all of a sudden he's a hot candidate. But you have a black candidate who has done well. Like, I'll give you an example, a guy named Perry Fuel, who's in the league office. He was a couple of Super Bowls. He was a defensive coordinator, the New York Giants, and he was brought around in different places and never got an opportunity. There's some good minority coaches out there, and Todd Bowles is a heck of a coach, and I hope that he gets another opportunity, because he's a hell of a coach. But it's just that people, I don't know how sincere they are, and that's the thing that bothers me, because a lot of times guys already know that they're going to get the job. And, like Eric Bieniemy, there's no reason why he shouldn't be a head coach somewhere. And the thing that bothered me is he has done a lot. He's won a Super Bowl. He's called plays. He has done all those things. He's with a great team. He's with a great head coach in Andy Reid. And then all of a sudden, he's a hot candidate. And then when they want to discredit him, they want to talk about something that happened when he was in high school. How many, if you follow half these coaches when they were in high school, people did some things that they probably wish they wouldn't have, but it happened. But you don't hold that against a young man who's built his way and earned his way and worked his way up the ladder to do what he does. And the other thing I see is it seems like with a minority coach, the goalposts move every year. It goes from, well, you got to be, when I was in it, and Sly Kroom and Kippy Brown, we were in it. Okay, you got to call plays. Okay, we call plays. Oh, we want a guy, we want a veteran head coach. Okay, now we're coordinators now. But we want a veteran head coach. Okay, so they start hiring veteran head coaches. And then all of a sudden, they start going to coordinators again. Oh, he doesn't have head coaching experience. And then they say, well, these guys have coached special teams. They are with all the players. They should have an opportunity. Well, I've been around all the players. We've been around all the players. So, it changes. And those are the frustrating things that happens with guys because they see it change, And I know some coaches that became head coaches. You look at Doug Peterson, you look at, coach of Chicago. They were at Kansas City and they ended up getting jobs. And Eric Bieniemy won a Super Bowl there. And he can't get a job. So you tell me what is going on there. But now I see, some teams that are, doing that at the Dolphins. They got Eric Studeville there. I see guys, and Eric is a heck of a coach, and he's a good man. But you see guys that need opportunities, and all you got to do is give them a chance. Okay, if you give us a chance and we fail, okay, you do what you have to do, but give us a chance. And we can't, guys can't get a chance. And that's the thing that probably frustrates me more than anything. I don't see guys getting a chance to show what they're capable of doing, And if they would give guys a chance, then you can find out what they're capable of doing. And the other thing that concerns me is some of these coaches, when they do hire a minority coach, they don't have a chance to pick their staff. The general manager picks his staff. Or if he wants to bring some guys in, they won't let him bring them in because we got to keep these guys. And so therefore, if you're going to give a guy an opportunity to coach and do the job, then let him pick his coaches. Let him pick his coaches. Give him a chance. And it's tough because when you and if the head coach wants to interview some of those guys and keep them, then so be it. But don't say, hey, you got to keep these guys. Give him a chance to interview them and talk and see if he does want to keep them. Because there's times when, you want to keep some of those guys, after you interview them, you talk to them. And then there's times, well, I got some guys that I've coached with. I've been with them. I know what they're capable of doing, and I want to bring those guys in. And so that's the other thing that I see. But the rules change every year. It just, I don't understand it. I do understand it, but that's not for me to say. But I do understand what the game is, and I understand what the politics are. But just give guys an opportunity. You give them opportunity and let them show what they're capable of doing. Because the other thing is, what I base it on, look at who they developed. Look at guys who develop guys and look what happens and look at what they've done and what they will be able to do in this league. Sometimes you hire guys that haven't developed anybody. Oh, he coached this guy, he had a great year. Okay, let's make him a head coach. Well, some of those guys are already great players. But look at the guys that you take and you develop and you make them into great players. That's what you need to look at.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
Resume. Look what you've done. And that's the other thing. Look at what you've done.
Right. One of the things that really stands out to me is I agree with you. I completely, wholeheartedly agree that the Rooney Rule was set up and created for good. And it truly does see, and I think you're a great example of it, the mockery that unfortunately it has become. This half hour has gone by so fast, but I have to ask, in light of what you see as a minority coach, are you able to speak on what you see as the future for women coaches and especially minority women coaches?
Well, I know one thing. There's some talented women coaches out there. And, they have women who are in NFL that are making a mark, and you got officials, women that are really doing a good job. And so the thing that I see is you can't intimidate these women. You can't intimidate them. And I think sometimes, people think because she's a woman, you might be able to intimidate her. The women that I've seen, they've done a great job, and I think it's going to be room for them. And that's why I want to tip my hat off to Bruce Arians, because Bruce Arians is one of the few head coaches, that has a minority offensive coordinator, a minority defensive coordinator, a minority special teams coordinator, and they won a Super Bowl. So give guys an opportunity to show what they're capable of doing. And I can tell you, you can say, well, Tampa got all these great players, but you know what? You still got to coach them. How many times have you seen a situation where you got great players, but you don't win? I'll never forget. And I'm jumping into basketball with the Brooklyn Nets. You had Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant and James Harden, great players, but injuries are a part of the game. And everybody was picturing them, they're going to win it all. And I told people, I said, guys, it's not like that. You can have all the great players, but it's not like it's automatic. You got to work, and you got to coach, and you got to come together. You got to be able to gel. Because if you don't gel, it's hard. And that's one other thing, just talking about the Buccaneers. The thing that impressed me is, I'll never forget, they were on TV, they talk about the cold weather. Oh, Tampa's going to have a hard time in the cold weather. They're going to do this and do that. Well, they got a quarterback who's played in cold weather, and he understands what it's like to cold weather. And when it comes from your leader that they have in Tom Brady, that tells you that when you listen to what a veteran guy who has been there and done it, then you're able to do some wonderful things. And the weather wasn't that bad in Green Bay that day anyway. It was beautiful, from being there. That was a blessing. But that's what happens,
So, Ray, I think you're bringing up so many great points, and they're points that we need to talk about, right? I don't want to say that I believe the league is a good old boys club, but I also don't want to be naive. I think it takes all of us working together to say, as a fan, as a sports fan, I want to see great coaches. I don't care what color their skin is.
Right.
I want to see great coaches because I want my team to win.
Right.
And I think at the end of the day, most sports fans want their team to win. So put the best person in the position. So I think I speak on behalf of most fans to say thank you for bringing up important issues. So, Coach, that being said, if people want to follow you, I want to just put this up there for anybody watching the live stream and listen on the podcast. Ray Sherman Sports on Instagram. Again, on Instagram, Ray Sherman Sports. Coach, you're doing good work. The fact that you would come on the show today to speak about the issues and enlighten us and, give us your approach and help us work to solve the problem, that's huge. And I want to say thank you to that. I do want to take out just a minute to shout out Sports Philanthropy Network. You can join us at the Sports Philanthropy World 2021 Virtual Conference, June 28th and 29th. For more information, visit sportsphilanthropynetwork.org. Coach, I heard you say earlier in the show you're writing a book?
Yes, I'm in the process of writing a book about my life and, things that I've gone through, and the good and the bad. And hopefully it'll do well. So I'm in the process of doing that now.
I think that's fabulous. Any idea of when we can expect to see it on Amazon, or what title we should look for?
I'm not going to reveal the title because I don't want anybody to steal it, but
good point.
I'm still, I got some time, so I'm still in the process of doing it. So I got quite a few things that I'm trying to, put together and grain in it and, see what happens.
Well, Coach, I'm grateful for you to sort of record the legacy Again, I think you are a historical NFL coach.
Thank you.
There are very few men in general who've coached as long as you have at the level you have, and much more to create hope and possibility for other minority coaches. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. One other thing, I know we got to go. One other thing I want to say, especially for young coaches, be yourself. Don't try to be someone that you're not. There's only one Bill Belichick, okay? There was only one Bill Walsh, you know? There's just be who you are. And I think sometimes guys try to imitate somebody, and that's not you. Players are smart. They know your personality. They know who you are. They know when you're being phony and you're not being truthful. Be a straight shooter with those guys. Tell them the truth because they want to know the truth. And that's one thing I've always lived by. And it didn't matter who I coached or what position I worked with. I talked to all the players, white, black, all of them. And we have fun. We talk about life. We talk about different things. We didn't have to talk about football because for me as a coach, I wanted to get to know the guys that I'm working with. I wanted to know the guys that I was around. And to me, you gather more information from guys, by doing that. And one last thing, I know because in practice, I was always hard on guys because I wanted to put as much pressure on them in practice. And then when the games come, if they made a mistake, I just say, hey, you owe me one or something. And one of the players I'll never forget, it's happened a lot, but the last place I was at with the Steelers, Deontay Johnson, he did something and something happened. And he looked at me and said, Coach, called me over and other guys on the bench. He said, why are you so calm during the game? You're not like that in practice. I said, no, because I don't want you guys to feel that you have to worry about me, being on your back. I want you to go out and play relaxed, and then we'll correct the mistakes or whatever we need to correct. But in the game, I want you to be relaxed because I don't want you to panic or get distracted or whatever and lose your cool because I'm on you. And they appreciate, okay, now we understand. And that's the way I've always been.
It sounds like that's also great advice for parents. So parents, I hope you heard that message loud and clear.
Yeah.
Ray, we are just about out of time. Before we leave today, I ask every guest on the show to partner with me to make an autograph donation to Special Olympics. Can we count on you for that as well?
You can count on me for that.
Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, I want to give you about 1 minute, Ray, parting words of wisdom and a chance to thank any of the people in your life that you need to shout out and thank.
Wow, there's so many. I want to thank my family, even my brothers and sister, and we're out in California, but my family, my daughter, Erica and Alana, and my wife, Yvette, and all my friends, a lot of people that been a part of this journey that I've been on, and a lot of coaches. I would be remiss. I can't name all of them because there's so many, but I want to thank all the guys that I've had an opportunity to work with and, communicate, and even players that I still, stay in touch with a lot of guys now, and, just special people, special guys. And I'm thankful to all of that. Those are the guys that helped make me who I am.
Yeah, Ray, I just have to say, I also have to give a shout out to your friends and family and supporters, because as our marketing team has promoted this podcast, the flood of comments that have come in, Donald Driver liking posts on Instagram, just the flood of comments and supporters, just really having your back. It's beautiful to see from my end. I just... You're a very blessed man, and obviously you've earned the love and respect of your family, your friends, and the players. So I think that's awesome. In closing, Ray, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for paving a way. I believe that you are a history maker. You're a way maker. You're a creator.
Thank you.
And I want to say thank you for creating hope and possibility, potentially for my daughters down the line, and for any minority person not to be judged on the color of their skin, but instead on their credentials and qualities. And that means a lot to me.
Thank you.
Folks, my name is Kayla Bradham. I'm here today with legendary coach, Mr. Ray Sherman, reminding you to live your legacy. Thank you, Ray.
Thank you.